Still on this thing about, why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just enter Jar Jar Binks' magical land of equality and fraternity and human flourishing? Why can't we get in there and do that? And I suppose I'm thinking about it in terms of John Lennon. I've mentioned John Lennon in a previous video about this, and particularly that song Imagine, which is a beautiful song. You can't not like Imagine, you really can't. But what a lot of bollocks, really. The lines about religion are often cited, and I think that's kind of fine. But a lot of the other stuff is just so hypocritical, really, and just masks, its own hypocriticality, really. By hypocriticality, is that a word? Anyway, because the sentiments sound so great. This imagine no possessions, I wonder if you can. I think it goes on something, nothing to kill or die for, a brotherhood of man. He writes that, and he wrote this song when he was living with Yoko Ono in New York, in a penthouse apartment in New York. Fantastic. They had a separate apartment underneath them, a separate not penthouse obviously, but a separate large apartment, just so they could keep their fur coats at an even temperature, because they had a whole collection of fur coats for some reason. So they had a whole apartment just to keep their fur coats at an even temperature. And he's upstairs banging away on this white grand piano that he used to compose his songs on, imagining no possessions. Well, it's not. You can do a bit more than imagine it, I would say, John. You can give stuff away. So that's a bit odd, isn't it, really? Imagine all the people living lives of peace. Well, it's really easy to live lives of peace when you've got a limousine to take you to your apartment, and you've got someone to provide for you, and you've got food delivered to you. That's really, really easy. It's not so easy to live a life of peace. If you are in some kind of war-torn state, if you're in Somalia, if you're in Somalia and the seas offshore are poisoned because of all the toxic waste that's been dumped there by the mafia, for God's sake, the Italian mafia dumping stuff off there, and it's a stateless society, and basically the only way you can get a crust is by you and your mates getting a boat together and getting some long poles and going shinning up an oil tanker and holding it to hostage for a while. I mean, it'd be great to live a life of peace, unless you happen to live in Somalia, in which case it's probably better to live a life of war. It's probably easier to live a life of piracy. Your kids will probably get fed more if you don't live a life of peace. If you live a life of peace, someone takes your stuff off you and kills you, sadly, and probably rapes you. Yeah, so John Lennon. I mean, you can't blame John Lennon, of course, apart from he's dead, apart from anything else, but it just seems to be symptomatic. I mean, he's just trapped in this kind of. Actually, I think he could have done more. But he's just kind of trapped in the system, as we all are, you know what I mean? Or at least it must have felt like that. I certainly feel like I'm trapped in it. Every day of my life I walk through, I walk through a society that is the product of other people's labour, that is the product of privilege. And it is bizarre, that, you know what I mean? It is bizarre. We have kind of outsourced our slaves to, we don't see the slaves around us like we used to. We don't see the servants, that people used to have. We've outsourced that whole thing, to the developing world, to other people, really. So we're just not confronted to it. In the same way that we've kind of outsourced the slaughtering of our animals to abattoirs, and we buy our meat, freeze packed in little polystyrene containers from the supermarket, already prepared. So it doesn't even look like an animal anymore. That whole process of slaughter has been outsourced. So we can pretend it doesn't happen. The same things happen to everything we do. Our whole economic base, our whole privilege is somewhere else now. And it's very hard to imagine. I mean, we can kind of imagine, but only in the most abstract terms. Imagine no possessions. Imagine living life of peace. Imagine we all just got along. But it's really hard to stretch, I think. It's probably just me having a limited imagination. But I think it's really hard just to imagine what you would do to achieve that. And if you do imagine it, I'm just not sure we'd do it, really. You know what I mean? I'm just not sure we'd do it. I mean, no one would, it would mean things like massive taxes, you know what I mean? And it's in trying to get taxation through a political system is impossible. It would mean things like massive inheritance tax. It would mean things like the forcible redistribution of wealth. No one's going to go along with that. No one's going to willingly give that up. So I think, imagining it, you can only imagine it in the most general terms. As soon as you start getting into detail, then you think, well, I think I'll just hang on to my penthouse apartment. Actually, I think I'll just hang on to this roof flat downstairs to keep my fur coats in, and just imagine it, and just kind of have this slightly wistful sense of, wouldn't it be nice if we all just got along? Wouldn't it be nice if the world could live as one? Yeah.